The 6-month history of Ukrainian aid from the United States is coming to an end, while other countries are increasingly assisting Ukraine in increasing air defense support. Hello, this is Ksenia Smirnova speaking from Kiev, Ukraine, UATV English studio in a weekly attempt to bring the hardest truth in easy time for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. The House of Representatives of the United States Congress approved the aid package for Ukraine, finally. After half a year of debates, political agreements, and various speculations, congressmen decided to allocate almost $61 billion to help Ukraine.
Significant package that will be felt by both our warriors on the front line and our cities and villages suffering from Russian terror. The U.S. House of Representatives voted today. I thank everyone who supported our package. This is a life-saving decision. I am grateful personally to Speaker Mike Johnson, to all Americans' hearts who, like us in Ukraine, feel that Russian evil definitely should not prevail. I hope that the package will be considered in the U.S. Senate and submitted to President Biden's desk quickly enough.
And it will be approved quite quickly, despite the fact that the Senate was supposed to be on vacation until April 29th. On Tuesday, the senators will gather to vote on the law necessary for Ukraine, the leader of the Democrats, Chuck Schumer, said. Then it will be signed by Joe Biden, currently pro-Russian propagandists in the terrorist country itself and in Europe are beginning to say that most of the allocated money will remain in the United States of America. And this is true, but as always, the details are important. After all, more than a third of the package, it's almost $23.2 billion, will be spent on replenishing U.S. Arms stocks. Yes, this money will be used for new equipment, ammunition, and projectiles for the American Army. But in return, Ukraine will receive decompensation equipment which will be replaced by purchases. And these equipment and shells are now very necessary for Ukraine. By the way, according to a political report, the Pentagon is preparing to quickly approve a weapon package for Ukraine. The U.S. Ministry of Defense is already working on the formation of a package of equipment that can quickly go through the bureaucratic procedure after the law is passed and signed by the president. According to the Washington Post, the Pentagon will need less than a week to deliver weapons to Ukrainian army after approving a new aid program. The U.S. Department of Defense warns of the risk of territorial damage without urgent measures on Capitol Hill. That is why they started forming the aid package long before the decision of the House of Representatives. The package of military aid to Ukraine will probably include much needed NATO 155mm ammunition, as well as projectiles for medium-range rocket artillery. In addition, the Pentagon will provide a new batch of air defense equipment and ammunition for them. Another $13.8 billion will be spent on the purchase of the latest weapons specifically for Ukraine. Therefore, we expect weapons worth more than $37 billion. And it seems to me that this will significantly affect the situation on the battlefield. In addition, the United States of America allocates more than $11 billion for its operations in the region. What exactly now is known only by the Pentagon and some intelligence. About $9.5 billion will be spent on economic assistance to Ukraine and other countries that suffered as a result of Russian aggression. Of course, you can ask how other countries were affected, but we know that dozens of countries have sheltered Ukrainian refugees. Also, there is currently a crisis in the food market due to the militarization of the Black Sea, which Ukraine is trying to deal with, and quite successfully. And some enterprises and even industries around need funds to reconfigure their work due to the imposed sanctions against Russia. And by the way, yesterday, the House of Representatives also passed a decision on TikTok ban in the United States. Allegation of military aid to Israel and Taiwan as well. And also the draft law, which allows the confiscation of frozen Russian assets for the benefit of Ukraine, which also greatly affected Russian politicians and propagandists. But as we see, more and more countries in the world are ready to say, God bless America. The Ukraine NATO Council agreed to send additional air defense equipment to Kiev. This was stated by the Secretary General of the North Atlantic Alliance, Jens Stoltenberg, after the Council meeting. NATO has identified available resources across the alliance. There are systems that are available for Ukraine. So I expect more announcements on air defense assistance to Ukraine in the near future, announced by the Secretary General. He noted that allies can provide Kiev with the air defense systems beside the Patriots, such as SAMP-T, or help with financial contributions if they do not have air defense systems. At the same time, Stoltenberg did not rule out that states can provide other military assistance.
When I call on allies to dig deeper into the inventories, there is a risk that they will go below the NATO guidelines. We have NATO capability targets, we have NATO guidelines based on defense plans. But of course, if allies then dig deeper and provide capabilities to Ukraine that are part of NATO's defense plans, then there is a risk that we will go below those guidelines. And I made it clear that if the only way NATO allies are able to provide Ukraine with the weapons they need to defend themselves, well, that's a risk we have to take, provided that this is a national decision, and provided that allies then make sure that they replenish the stocks.
I'd like to remind you that this week, Vladimir Zelensky called for a meeting of the Ukraine NATO Council regarding the defense of the sky and air defense systems, which are currently needed by our states. This happens after Russia carried out several missiles attacks on the energy systems of Ukraine and civilian cities such as Chernihiv, Dnipro, and Odessa. At the same time, the Ukrainian authorities are currently conducting active negotiations for the acquisition of 3 air defense batteries, 2 Patriot and 1 SAMP-T. As the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dmytro Kuleba, recently announced the decision to help Ukrainians with air defense will be made. But the question is that it should happen as soon as possible. Germany, in turn, stepped up efforts to find air defense systems for Ukraine and launched a corresponding initiative. Before that, the minister said that there were at least 100 Patriot batteries that could be transferred to Ukraine, and at least 4 countries could do so immediately. Currently, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is focused on obtaining 7 systems. The G7 countries announced their intention to strengthen the air defense of Ukraine. This is stated in the communiqué of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs of the G7 countries and the High Representative of the European Union on Foreign Policy and Security Policy. We express our resolve in particular to bolster Ukraine's air defense capabilities to save lives and protect civilian infrastructure. We will also work with partners towards the ends, this statement reads.
The future of Europe is being decided in Ukraine. The future of Middle East is being decided in Israel. And the future of the world order is being decided in both these places. The West has the capacity to be efficient in all crises. I think the narrative that the West has to choose between supporting Israel or Ukraine is wrong, because these are 2 theaters of the same war.
In their communique, the heads of foreign affairs of the G7 countries and the head of the EU diplomacy condemns the war of aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine and also confirmed their unwavering determination to support democratic Ukraine, which defends its freedom, sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders. We demand that the Russian Federation immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw all its armed forces and equipment from the internationally recognized territory of Ukraine. Russia can end this war today, said diplomats. They called on all countries not to support and not condone Russia's attempts to acquire territory by force, and also stated that they will never recognize the legitimacy of the so-called referendums or elections, past or future, held by the Russian Federation in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, as well as their results. Countries are also increasing their assistance to Ukraine in the fields of defense and security, and we are increasing our production and supply capabilities to provide assistance to Ukraine. The communique reads, they also pledged to continue the provide military, financial, political, humanitarian, and economic support to Ukraine and its people, as well as the help to Ukraine repair restore its critical energy and environmental infrastructure. It was reported that at a meeting with his Italian colleague Antonio Tajani in Italy, Kuleba discussed the strengthening of Ukraine's air defense, the peace summit, and the restoration of Ukraine. Before that, Kuleba called on the G7 countries to follow the example of Germany and make a decision on the supply of additional air defense systems as soon as possible. Early Germany announced the urgent transfer of one Patriot anti-aircraft missile complex to Ukraine. Time for more on UATV English. You ask hard questions, we answer in easy terms. The question of the week has been voiced by our viewer, Sahara Parulov. And that question sounded like, why wasn't Putin already defeated? So Putin ends with him. The whole of Russia is still not defeated due to several reasons. The main thing is that you can't eat an elephant at once. Likewise, a huge Russian army cannot be overcome in a short period of time. After all, before the invasion of Ukraine, Russia had the second most powerful army in terms of numbers and equipment. As we can see, this did not allow the Kremlin to capture Kyiv in 3 days. Second, Russia has retained almost all of the Soviet Union's military stockpiles since the Cold War, and they're really huge there. Although tanks and artillery of the 1950s are increasingly seen at the fronts, probably the most important reason in Russian nuclear weapons, and this is also different for other countries. That is why the Kremlin is trying to get some benefits for it by manipulating with nuclear blackmailing. And this is probably why Dmitry Medvedev scares with nuclear escalation several times a month. By the way, Moscow is blackmailing everyone, not only with the nuclear weapons, but also with nuclear power plants. That is why last week there were few explosions at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plants, which is fully controlled by Russia now. Someone can say that these are Ukrainian provocations, but International Atomic Energy Agency experts were not allowed to do and to go any place of the explosion, and it is clear who is doing these provocations. And the last reason why Putin has not lost until now is the difference in the thinking of the dictator and civilized world. Western countries still hope that they can somehow come to an agreement, appease Russia, or economically force them to change their behavior. Unfortunately, all this does not work because not only Putin, but also the majority of the Russian people now support the aggressive war. Yes, as a result of the long-term effects of propaganda, and perhaps most of them supported until this war touches them. but they still support this war. And believe me, they will support the war not only against Ukraine, but also against Europe and the United States, and if necessary, the countries of Central Asia or China. So as you know, we in Ukraine until a certain time also thought that the Kremlin could somehow be ticked or persuaded not to attack. But now, after part of our territory has been captured, our cities have been destroyed to the ground, and thousands of Ukrainians have been killed, tortured, raped, we know that the Kremlin can be stopped only by force. And that is probably why we will not agree to any negotiations, because any truce with Moscow is only a pause before a new Russian attack. That seems to be it for tonight and for this week. It was Ksenia Smirnova in UATV English, breaking the hard truth to easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine, as usual. We like you, and we hope that feeling is at least somewhat mutual. Like us in return, describe and share, help us to promote Ukrainian voice worldwide. Stay safe and tuned for more nights already on tomorrow.